Thank you, Amanda, and congratulations for having such a phenomenal event in Singapore the first time. Thank you, LSI, for inviting us. So today it is my great honor to moderate this panel with Chris, Helen, and the much younger and better looking Michael Wang. So why don't we start with some self-introductions? Chris, let's start with you, even though everybody knows who you are.
Sure. So Chrissy, so nice to meet all of you and welcome to Singapore. I lead the M&A function as well as minority investment for Medtronic for the broad portfolio on a global basis.
Okay.
Helen?
So good morning, everyone. This is Helen Yang from Fosun Medtech, the Medtech division of Fosun Pharma. I'm working as the head of investment and business development.
Hi, everyone. I'm Michael Wang. In China, I lead the venture function in Greater China for Medtronic.
I'm Michael Wang. I'm the founder of Sunmed Capital. Sunmed Capital is a global VC firm focusing only on medical devices. So let's start with my first question here with the panel. So why should we consider cross-border investment or collaboration? So do the fundamentals still support such cross-border deals? Chris, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, so I'll start that. Yeah, absolutely. The fundamentals still are there, right? It's about unmet need, large patient populations, and bringing new technologies to serve those unmet needs. And so those fundamentals are not changing, haven't changed. It's some of the obviously, economics that are changing, that are, constantly evolving. And so we just have to keep on evaluating and reassessing the opportunity and the size, but the underlying fundamentals are there for doing cross-border transactions.
Yeah. So by the way, we have a great panel today, right? Chris, you are looking from global's perspective, from U.S. towards the other regions of the world, right? And Michael and Helen, I suppose you are mostly looking from China's point of view to invest across outside of China, right? So Helen, what do you think?
Yeah, I think, at Fosun Medtech, our mission is to bring the global technology innovation to the patient. So for sure, the cross-border collaboration and transaction is still a critical driver for the progress. However, seeing the rapidly changing landscape, I think the viability of this cross-border transaction should depend on the evolving fundamentals. For example, we have to be more selective on the deals, focusing on the unique technology and the high-growing segments. And secondly, we have to be more adaptive, especially under some new policies in certain territories. We have to be adaptive to the new deal structures, to the pricing strategies and registration strategies. And also, I think it's more important is that we have to have a strong awareness about risk mitigation.
That's great. Michael, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think so basically, I think there are things that are changing, like in the short term, like the market and some of the policies, but there are some more fundamental changes and structural changes that are more longer term, and that makes cross-border transaction being able to capture the values that for example, China and US are very complementary to each other. US has been very good at 0 to 1 innovations. China has been very good at 1 to 10, scaling up at lower cost and fast speed of iteration. And these two combination can work well very each other.
Yeah. So speaking of cross-border transactions or deals, right? Last year, Medtronic acquired the Netherlands company 40medics, right? So when you do a cross-border deal, what types of deals will you consider, like a minority investment or acquisition, etc.? And how do you decide when to, consider which type of deals, right? So can you share your thoughts from a strategic point of view or from a corporate ventures point of view? shall we start with this time with Michael first thing?
Sure. So, some of the considerations, I think one of the common consideration, whether it is from China or anywhere else, is really like whether this is some technology that will benefit patients, and also it is innovative and differentiative enough, and also serves the strategic priorities for Medtronic. But I think from China's perspective, we're seeing some differences, and also seeing some interesting changes recently, with more of the innovations coming up, and which are starting to make sense for global markets, which we're really interested in.
So, Chris, you may want to add on to the medics.
Yeah, in terms of kind of the different deal structures. So
Right.
so we don't go into interactions and into a relationship saying, oh, we're going to do this or we're going to do that, right? We are approaching it of what is needed at that given point in time for the technology, for the company to continue to evolve.
Right.
And so we're constantly looking at whether it should be an acquisition. Is that a better outcome or a pathway? Is a structured transaction a better outcome or pathway? Or is just a clean minority investment to allow the company to independently grow and get the investment that they need in order to meet the overall goal and mission that they're trying to achieve. And so we're constantly evaluating. We do things in parallel so that we can evaluate, and then ultimately, then at the end of our work, we will then determine what we think is the right win-win solution for not only for the company to continue to evolve and succeed, but also what's in the best interest for Medtronic. Is it better for us to step in and have a heavier involvement or not? And so it's ultimately coming down to where can we add value? Where does the company need value creation and support? And can we help them? And however we can do that, that's how we'll structure it.
Totally. So, Helen, what do you think from, you're more like a China corporate venture, right? When do you choose, what type of,
Yeah.
deals would like to do?
So as we actually have a strategic money from the company, and we also have a corporate venture. So these two arms work together. But so we can have very diversified deal structures. We did the minority investment, but this investment must be bounding with some China right, like the commercial right, manufacturer right. And we did several acquisitions that how we had our, built up our medical aesthetics platform. And simultaneously, we are very interested in setting up joint ventures with our partners outside China. So from the deal structure side, we keep ourselves to adaptive to all the possibilities. But the philosophy here is that as a strategic investment, we are not only seeking for the financial returns, but we have also to seeking for the strategic returns that based on a comprehensive assessment of fit and synergy.
Okay. So I have a kind of follow-up question on the transaction deals, right? I mean, because we're talking about global, cross-border transactions, one thing we have to be careful is the regional right or country right? So such as China right or Asia right. And sometimes those rights are not available for various reasons, right? Sometimes the targeted company may want to keep the China right, for example, for them to distribute their products by themselves, right? So do you see this a deal block to you, or what's your view on the regional rights? So Chris.
Yeah, I can start with that one. So I get this question quite often,
Yeah.
And primarily from startup CEOs looking to raise money in Asia, and whether if they took capital from an investor in Asia and had to give up rights either for China or for other territories, whether that would preclude us, Medtronic, as a strategic, to actually look at it or contemplate it, and or how would it impact our view of the opportunity. And my advice 100% of the time is, look, you as the CEO have to do what's right for the company at that given point in time. So if that requires you to give up rights, then so you have to, right? I mean, you have a fiduciary responsibility of your shareholders and of the company to continue to evolve the technology in the company and grow it. And so if that is your only pathway to capital, then so be it. Then you do that. Now, that means, though, that as a strategic, I have to then take that into consideration and understand what that means, what rights were given up, for how long, for what duration,
Right.
and what that means if I am stepping into potentially acquiring this company. And so what I've always said is the last thing I want to do is stand up in front of my board of directors and say, look, we're going to acquire this company, but we don't have China rights, for example. That's not a good outcome for me to be able to have to communicate. But I understand that that might be required at that time. So what I always suggest is make sure that you build in some kind of mechanism to bring those rights back. So that way, when a strategic does acquire you or wants to partner with you, they have a pathway to get 100% of the rights if they so choose.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you have that kind of built into it, then it becomes a non-issue at the end of the day. It becomes a financial issue, but it's less of a strategic issue.
Yeah, I see. What about Helen? What do you think about when you go out to, let's say, Europe or Southeast Asia here, if they want to keep the right to distribute the products in Europe, what do you think?
So to very straightforward answer your questions, if they want to keep their right, I think for us, that will be a deal breaker. But for the regional right, I think it depends on the different companies, what there is like their short-term strategy, long-term strategy. Some of the start companies that they have no capability to expand to the like China or some Asian Pacific countries. So that if you leverage a strong partner in the territory, that can help you to expedite your commercial pathway and also can help you to some extent to increase the valuation of the company. But as Chris said, for when you want to issue this certain territory right, you have to put a set of very, serious criteria for this right. For example, if you have to work together with your partners in certain territory on how they will fulfill this right. You have to set up with them the milestones and the registration milestones, the commercial milestones, and the commercial target, for the first 5 years to see if they can meet the criteria, and if not, you can have some right to retrieve this right. So you have always to protect the company, but also you have to find a way to develop. So I think it's how you set the structure of this deal.
Okay, so Michael, you also look at investments in China, right? I mean, sometimes you wanted the distribution right in China for Medtronic, right?
Yeah, actually, I think it connects a little bit to the last question because it really depends on the deal structure and at what stage this company is at versus where we are at, collaborating with them. And in China, there's a lot of times where a lot of collaboration starts with distribution. So that's less of an issue usually. And with distribution going well, we probably, have a deeper collaboration along the time. But at the same time, I think the other trend that has been going on for the past 2 to 3 years, which is the entrepreneurs and investors, shareholders of these startup companies starting to be much more open towards BD collaboration and potential acquisition in the future instead of going for IPO, right, as their main exit, due to a variety of reasons. But I think it makes a lot of sense. And so I think it's really depending on, how to be open and understand each other's needs and position. And usually I don't see that as too much of an issue. And because of the time it might take for an acquisition to happen, and the room there is to make sure that if there are some companies that has to distribute some of their products in certain geographies for a certain time of period, there are always ways to make it work when an acquisition happens, to take that over or things like that. And usually that's what strategics are better at doing, right?
Yeah. So for my personal experience is whatever Medtronic or Fosun Pharma, whatever they want for my portfolio companies, agree with them, right? So do what they want. So, okay. So let me jump, kind of pivot a little bit. I mean, we got to ask the next question, right? So recent geopolitical environment has changed dramatically, right? With increasing tariffs or whatever. Last night President Trump said that the deal with China is done, right? So I hope it's done. So has this changed your decisions to do any cross-border investments like in China, some other areas? I mean, are you still in a wait and see mode, or are you in a buy the dip mode? Chris, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of goes to the first question and kind of what Helen was talking about, right? Which is, if you think about the macro activities that are happening, it's constantly evolving.
Yeah.
Nobody knows what tomorrow is going to bring. Like did anybody expect that last night they were going to solve the tariff issues? No, I mean, because it's so rapidly changing. And so, it gets back to what is the strategy that you're trying to execute on, and what is that long-term vision. And all this is just noise right now. Now, what it does, obviously, it makes you, have focus on that and think about that and factor it in if it is going to continue, and that noise is going to continue or the tariffs are going to continue. But it doesn't change your long-term kind of vision of what a cross-border transaction is going to be. It just puts things a little bit into perspective, from a diligence perspective, from a focus. And Helen talked about, prioritizing and really kind of being more selective. So you probably end up being a little bit more selective versus completely, on the sideline and stopping. You're really focusing on strategically, here are the key areas that I need to execute on.
Yeah.
And I need to find a solution for. So that's where I'm going to focus. And then some of these other ones maybe are less strategically important today, that you can then kind of pause on those and redeploy your focus somewhere else.
I see. So Helen, when you look at say investment opportunities in US, are you still continue on your pace, or are you slowing down?
Yeah, so there's no doubt that many of the innovations came from Israel and the United States. So we still keep looking into the opportunities in the United States. But we feel that it's not our issues. We have no issues in making deals with the US-based companies. But some of the companies that is from the United States, they have concerns to working with Chinese, because sometimes I was ask some question here. If we take your investment, maybe that will have an influence in the future round of our investors, because we don't know how they will evaluate this situation if we have some Chinese shareholders in our company. And I also have one time that the company said, we really want to collaborate with you, and especially in the China market, but we are building for, we have a short plan for IPO in the United States. I'm not sure if your participate will influence this result. So I think it's because of the changing dynamics has making this deal very complicated. So I think the opportunity is still there, but it set a lot of barriers and more challenges in make this deal happen. So we now change more focus to transfer to Europe and Israel. I believe there are still some startups that we can collaborate at the very early stage.
Okay. Anything to add, Michael?
Yeah, I think to Helen's point, I think in the long term, the relationship between China and US is challenging. So regardless of the short-term volatilities, companies need to build the resilience that it needs from the point of view of supply chain, technology, capabilities, in China and in the US. And I think at the end of the day, it really boils down to the value of the asset, right? If you have a good group of concentration of value of valuable asset that makes sense for your company, why not? And at the end of the day, science is science, right? And disease is disease, right? So whatever works in China might very well work everywhere else, right? And today I'm seeing a lot of discrepancies or diverging paths that different companies are taking regarding to China. And I think this is a moment in time where it might make a lot of difference 5-10 years after when you look back. And a lot of companies that chose to separate might regret, but there's no way coming back. And if we look at biotech, it has been really clear, like recent years, right? The number of deals in China has been consisting of like 1/3 of the global deals, and for this year alone, it is almost 50%, and that is really some amazing changes. But that's happening on top of the decades of investment and dedication of entrepreneurs in China. MedTech is lagging back behind a little bit. I think it's probably like 3 to 5 years lagging behind, but I think it's catching up. It's going to be more complicated with regards to tech transfer, manufacturing, know-hows, market education, things like an IP, which is going to be quite challenging for a lot of cases. But I think the day is going to come. Maybe not for all of the assets, but at least a part of it that will make sense for global. So why not do that?
Okay, that's good to know. So maybe for the audience, right? I mean, in like 1 or 2 sentences, can you give some advice for doing any cross-border deals, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I think any deal, even domestic deals, but more importantly, cross-border deals. Invest early in building trust and that relationship, because that's what will bring you through to the finish line in all of the ups and downs and the noise and the turmoil, is that trust and that foundation. It's obviously more important cross-border because of the cultural aspect of it. But also, some of the comments was about it's around the right time. And sometimes you might want to do a transaction, but it's not the right time for one side or the other. But you are building and establishing that relationship that maybe in the future it will evolve. And so I know that wasn't one sentence, but to me, it's around investing early in trust and the relationship.
Yeah, Helen.
I want also to echo Chris, as that in its days, cross-border transactions, it's all about building trust. But building trust is start from the building first the connections and understanding, and all the trust is based on understanding. So from the many cross-border deals that we have learned in Fosun MedTech, that the cross-border collaboration is not about erasing differences, but about to engineer the new DNA together with our partners.
Okay. Michael, anything?
Yeah, I think both of you said it perfectly. I think maybe just transparency is also important in building the understanding to gain trust along the way.
Okay. So we still have some time left. I don't know if we are open for questions from the audience.
Maybe we'll ask you as the moderator, what do you think about cross-border transactions?
I think it for us. I mean, we invest both in US and in Asia, right? I mean, Singapore and China. I think the technology, the unmet. First of all, let's start with unmet clinical needs, right? it's universal, right? It's not, some unmet needs in China is similar to unmet needs in US or some other regions, right? So when we look at innovations, let's say in US, we always think about, can we transfer that or leverage that to help the patients in China or in Asia? So I think even though we are having some challenges, geopolitically, but I think it's just short-term disturbance, right? Once that if we look at for the long run, these type of cross-border transactions should continue, and for the sake of patients around the world, we should continue to do that. So that's how we see it, and that's how we operate as we look at global opportunities. So
very good.
Yeah. So
can I
yeah.
Can I have a question for you, Chris?
Sure.
Okay, so we have a very innovative technology in China that we incubate. It's like a lung cancer therapeutic device. So we now attract many attentions from the United States, and including the BD sector from Medtronic. So, but we want to keep the China right here in China for the China commercialization. But we are willing to collaborate with U.S. companies to, license this right in the United States. So, do you think it's still a viable deal structure for Medtronic?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you raised that, because that is becoming more and more a request that we're hearing, is the kind of local China company wanting to own its own rights, continue to commercialize it there, but then wanting to partner with multinationals for Europe, US, Japan, etc. And yeah, I mean, it's something that we absolutely will evaluate and look at and see what's the right way that we would think about that. What we tend to want to do, though, is have a global portfolio. And so having a competing product in one region versus another region becomes a little bit more challenged. And so usually what we would want to do is do some kind of joint venture in China or wherever it is for that jurisdiction, and then get the rest of global rights so that we can have the portfolio effect on a global basis.
Okay, thank you.
I think there's a question from Yuval.
Can we get a microphone, or we could repeat it, I guess? Up here in the front?
Yeah.
Middle?
Thank you for a very good discussion about the whole concepts involved in cross-border deals. But I was missing one key question. Why on earth you want to do a cross-border deal? Why? What's the reason? Because everything else is driven by why to do it. My view, I'm curious to hear the panel opinion. My view is you want to tap into innovations all over the world. Remember, we are patient-driven. To put aside money and profits, we are patient-driven. So if there is a great innovation come out of Papua New Guinea or somewhere, I don't know, sure, we want to tap it and to make it international. But maybe there's other reasons. So why should we do the whole thing, of course, and get involved in this complexity, which now increasing with all this grand politics and anti-collaboration and anti-globalization. So I would like to hear your opinion.
Yeah, I can start with that one. So I kind of boil it down to two main reasons why you do cross-border. One is innovation, like you were talking about. There's some unique innovation that we haven't seen somewhere else, and it's been addressed, and it will address a large patient population, not only in that jurisdiction but on a global basis. The other is speed to market in that country. Or access to that market in that country, where it typically what a strategic would look at, take China for example, usually that's been the last country that we look at to go to market to, because we'll want to do US, Europe, Japan, and then China. And obviously the rest of kind of Southeast Asia kind of falls into some mix of either China, Europe, or US data. And so we tend to put that towards the end. And so by partnering or doing a cross-border deal with somebody, does that accelerate and move China, for example, earlier in the commercialization, which means we had to service those patients at a much earlier time point than what we would have typically seen in our own kind of development cycle. So those are the kind of the two main reasons that I see that we look at. I don't know if there's others that you guys think about.
Yeah, so first is the patient. So we'll, as I mentioned, we want to bring the global innovation to our patient. And also, I think another driver for cross-border deals is to learn about the different cultures to help us to make our own business globalization. But another point I have in my mind is I think the cross-border deals can also help to advance the treatment or the technology in the treatment side. And because, for example, some of the Chinese physicians are very are more experienced in doing certain procedures that we can leverage their experience to advance the whole therapeutic areas. That is one of the beauties for the cross-border transactions.
Yeah, I think to basically the possibility to leverage what different countries and geography is good at, right? Because usually there are differences what they're good at. And for example, in China, the speed of iteration, the cost structure, that might actually work well, not only in China, but for a lot of other countries in the world, which is making a lot of sense. And therefore, at some point, maybe a differentiated solution for different geographies.
Yeah, that's great. I don't have anything to add. So I want to thank the panelists. This was a very insightful discussion, and I hope the audience can get some takeaways when you considering, cross-border deals. Thank you.